My name's RJ King. I'm editor of D Business Magazine here in Detroit, which is a regional business publication, as well as D Business Daily News, Detroit 500, which is an annual publication of the top business leaders in Metro Detroit, and then a Monday newsletter called Hustle and Muscle, where we pair startups with investors in Michigan to just try raise the level of investment and activity and get these startups to the next level. I'm also the author of 6 books, including Detroit, Engine of America, that tells the story of how Detroit went from a French fort in 1701 up to 1900 to become the birthplace of the auto industry. So that 200 years of history here that most people don't know about. Detroit's the oldest city in the Midwest, older than Chicago, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and even Buffalo. So it's my pleasure to host this panel from the locker room to the boardroom in transitioning mindsets. To my left, we have Rob Sims, who was the 2002 BCS champion with Ohio State University. And an 8-year NFL starter, offensive lineman for the good old Detroit Lions. And to my right, we have Goster Cherilis, who's a former offensive tackle for the Detroit Lions, Indianapolis Colts, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he's also principal of Bastion Companies in Boston, and it's a commercial real estate development company. So I thought we'd start out with you, Goster, and if you could talk about some of the significant lessons you learned in school, but also playing that you've used today in the business world that has helped you be successful.
Well, to start with, first of all, thank you for having me. Thanks again. But it didn't take long for me to realize the same work ethic, the same code that I've used for so many years, somewhat helped me become so successful at my work as a right tackle for the Detroit Lions. Even prior to that, me not knowing what I always wanted to do, even when I was playing, I've always started my real estate development company. And during the off season, I would go back and forth. I used to always have a chance to somewhat like sit in the room, listen to some of my partners, and I'll come back, talk to some of my teammates. It was the same vocabulary, the same terminology. It was pretty much the same code. Then it didn't take me long for me to realize if I want to be successful at this, it was no different compared to my preparation to how I get ready for my football game, the way I show up with the type of discipline, type of work ethic. Don't let, once you put your mind to something, find the will, the work ethic, somewhat get it done, and not just to get it done. Do it, do it the right way at high class, world class level. Somewhere where you can go home, be extremely proud of what you've done, your work, and that's what we've been doing, and so far so good.
Good. And Rob, well, I know both of you are part of Primitive Group, as well as Calvin Johnson. But if you could talk about your experiences growing up with the team in college, maybe perhaps some lessons you learned in high school, maybe you had mentors, and how that transitioned and led to success in the business world.
Yeah, I think I had a very unique upbringing. I'm a second generation NFL kid, and so is my wife. So we always say we kind of saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of how it looks to be in the NFL and come out of the NFL and what transition looks like. And, really what reinventing yourself looks like. My dad was a 6'8", 260 pound nose tackle that, was retired in the, late 70s. So there wasn't like there were millions of dollars for us to just go live our lives. So him and my mom worked hard to provide for us, and they did a really good job. So I think that's the first thing I saw was just the hustle that they had and how they worked. And that translated into a lot of different areas in my life, and part of that is just being on the football field. I wasn't always the biggest or necessarily the strongest. but I just always had that work ethic and always would just go after it. And didn't matter how many times I got beat up, I was going to keep going at it. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is the will to just keep going up. There's always going to be mistakes. There's always going to be things that you have to fight through. Always very hard, difficult conversations you're going to have, especially in a new industry with new rules and everything like that. And, for me, it was just, it's just continuing to just get up, man. It just had that eye of the tiger, man. And the one thing I think I learned from head coaches in general, some of them, Jim Schwartz, Jim Caldwell, Coach Jim Tressel, they kind of told me how to what does it look like to lead 53 really egomaniacs when you really think about it, right? That's what we are, man. And the fact that you can get 53 guys going in the same direction, I always wanted to be that guy in the front of the room, but my path was different in doing it with our team at Primitive. So now we're 75 people of the same egomaniacs to a certain extent that we have to make sure that we do right by those people. We shepherd those people. Those folks are family to us. And yeah, so I think I learned a lot of those traits just watching head coaches and how they move the crowd, how they move the agenda for the team.
Guster, if you could talk about Bastion Companies, how that got started, what you're working on today. I know you're based in Boston and building at least one building in the World Trade Center area.
Yes, sir. When I first retired, part of my goal was to somewhat like serving my community. We went back. I was doing some fundraisers, a couple of football camps, but we had a camp where probably about 60 kids showed up. And I was talking to a friend of mine. He pretty much said, you have the camp during the week, and some of the mothers, parents, single mothers, they're working. They couldn't show up. And I said, how can we help? He said, they need jobs. With him saying that I had a great relationship with him. He was an ex-mayor of my hometown, and we started looking at ways how we can somewhat help out a little bit. And one of the things that I had a chance to do, I had a friend of mine that I went to school with. They were getting this big development building started. At that time, I was doing my own personal real estate development project, some small stuff. There was a lot of stuff that I was doing just when I first got to the league. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, so I didn't have any education when it comes to financial advisors. So I didn't hire one because I didn't know. I was not comfortable with someone I don't even know. The day I give you my check, 1 or 2% is going to go to you. You don't have to work for it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to sit on this for as long as I can and see what I can do with it. So I reached out to a friend of mine. We started flipping homes. He was helping me out during the off season. I work with him, just trying to find ways. I was already thinking about second careers. So with all that, with me already being a part of that world, knowing what we knew, when that building was being built, a friend of mine that I went to BC with, he reached out and said they were looking for a minority partner. With him asking, I went into the meeting, I trying to help him understand if we had a chance to do this, let's do it the right way. Here are some of the things that I care for. Right now, it's the only project in Boston with a 70-30 JV partnership. Constructions, it's the only project in Boston with 80-20 JV partnership on the development part of it. It's also the only project where we have a syndication start at $15 million, where we reach out to folks, somewhat help them invest in the project, trying to change folks' lives a little bit. On top of all that, there are too many things I will come here and brag about, but that to me makes me somewhat a little happy. The fact that, I can walk into one of the ladies that work for us, and when she's leaving the office at night, tells me she's going home to her 3 kids. The fact that I know what I've done on the football field to carry me to where I am today, help me make those selfless decisions, somewhat help out with my community a little bit, that somewhat, these are some of the things that somewhat like give me a little bit of will to wake up in the morning.
That's awesome. Rob, if you could talk about Primitive Group. I know when you have a new business come out, it's people keep asking, what's it called? I mean, when we came out with D-Business, everybody kept calling it DB Business. And then once you get past that, it's you're kind of all alone, and you got to make that name for yourself. And how did you and Calvin and Goster and the initial team, now up to I think to 75 employees, and growing. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I always think about this. Players, we're more conditioned to follow a plan, right? Monday mornings we come and they say, "Here's the playbook, go execute it." The thing is, when you're in the real world and you're not in that anymore, you got to be the one to kind of develop the plan. And I think the one thing that we hold on to is like, we know we don't know everything, right? We're new to business. This is my upcoming 10th year out the league. I can't even believe that it's been 10 years. But in the beginning, man, I was starting from the very beginning. Sometimes as players, we get done playing on this high and we think we're going to be able to walk into the next field on that same level. But no, we started on the bottom, man, and really had to earn our stripes and make our mistakes and take our lessons. But initially, it started with real estate. I think you're hearing guys are talking about real estate. That was my path as well. I owned a title company here in Birmingham for a little while, so I was understanding how to flip homes and how real estate purchases work. And then cannabis real estate was booming. Like that's all anybody could ever talk about was grabbing this property over here, doing this property. So obviously, me and Cal had the opportunity to get into some deals together. Obviously, with his platform, it requires so much more thought into what you're going to do. Just because you have to be careful of, not only his brand but our brands as well, right? That we've worked really hard to do. So it was really about just saying to ourselves that as we kept pulling back the onion of what cannabis could be like. Well, if we did it or ran the business how we wanted to look. And as we continue to do that and the branding and things started to take shape and it was, hey, we got these really good ideas and we got this really good story and, hey, let's grab this piece over here for human resources. Let's grab this piece over here for operation. And we kept working it and building the name. And we, quite honestly, in the very beginning, we got a lot of great press, but it was national press. It was CBS in the morning press. And we had a very local product. So it was really about, okay, if we're going to be able to play on that stage, how are we going to be able to build a product that can be more mainstream? And obviously that's hard with cannabis, but we found that with CBD and our spinoff company, so to speak, Primitive Performance, is now what we're working on right now. We've got these really cool opportunities in sports. We just got NSF certified. Which is just a certification for athletes, as they become professionals, right? They need to be worried about what they're putting in their body and what exactly they're using. And we've been able to do that with a product that, is a CBD product. And, we just had a partnership with Ford Field, not necessarily the NFL, but Ford Field in general. So that George Strait concert this summer is going to be crazy, right? Because you're going to have, sponsored by Primitive as well. So those are the cool things that we've really been able to break some interesting barriers. And part of our vision and mission and core values in the beginning was to change the stigma of cannabis. And I think me and Calvin and Al Gosder and the work he's doing in Massachusetts, right? 6 years ago, I wouldn't think I would have a store that had the Primitive name in downtown Boston, right across the street from the Boston Harbor. But it happened. Didn't think we would have opportunities with Ford Field and, getting ready to make some other big announcements here soon. This is stuff that has just continued to follow us. And we've just had a lot of favor in this journey we've had. But we built an incredible team. And, I got one of the best partners, not only in the football field, but just people in general in Calvin. And now with guys, rounding us out, man, we're putting our team back together, so to speak, as we had here in Detroit. So I got Joik Bell in the audience over there. He's next. So you gotta figure it out, Joik. So.
Well, and also you guys, in Michigan now, cannabis is a $3 billion industry, and that's in 5 years. It's probably going to level off in the next year or so. There's still some untapped markets here in Detroit is one, places like Traverse City. But the fact that you guys were both a grower and in retail, and what were the benefits of that?
Yeah, it was definitely some benefits. When we started, we wanted to be vertically integrated. That was the big word in the very beginning. Everybody wanted to do it because you wanted to be able to control it from start to finish. The flip side of the coin is controlling anything in every business is difficult. Sometimes this one is doing great. Sometimes this one needs some attention. But it's been good for us to learn the whole business, right? So we've learned what we like to hunt. We know what we're looking for in a deal now, and we know like where to apply different pressure because we have that view of the business, right? So now it's just about really us continuing to refine our tools. And like I said, we've learned a great deal in a short time, and we're just excited about everything that's coming down the pipe for us, man. Really cool stuff.
That's great. And Coster, what advice would you give to athletes today that are in college, even high school? I mean, we do a thing each year, powered by youth, where we detail an entrepreneur who's 18 years or younger. But what advice would you give to that group, to students today that are looking to get into business?
Be humble and learn how to network. I think myself, I didn't do enough of it. I don't think if you did. I walked in a room thinking I was the biggest thing in the world. I wouldn't go introduce myself to people. I wasn't taking cards. Now, years later, I took off the helmet, the jersey. I'm running into the same people. You're looking for these relationships again. At that time, they wanted to meet you. That's when you had the spotlight on you. Don't be afraid. Introduce yourself. Go out. Get out of your comfort zone. If there's something going on in your neighborhood, it doesn't have to be all about you. Show up, introduce yourself to people, shake hands, introduce names to faces. And on top of that, many times after we leave the sports world, we think we have to leave everything behind for us to accept our new self. No, when you understand, your path and everything you've done to somewhat, help you become this person you become today, it's all part of your journey. It's all a part of you. It's with the right mindset, the right attitude, it's okay if you give yourself a good enough code that somewhere you can carry on with you to the next level. That's going to serve you or serve your community, and those who are looking up to you can give them somewhat like live by. But at the end of the day, before you leave, understand you're not too big to walk around and introduce yourself to everyone, even if they already know your name. And I'm saying this, and I'm a stiff. I mean, you guys see me walking around. It takes a while for me to introduce myself to people. But I got a great friend of mine, man, and I saw it, and that's it there. I'm like, you know what? You're not too big to introduce yourself to people. Calvin Johnson was our first-round draft pick. Anyone that walks into the building, he walks into the locker, introduce himself like they don't know who he is. It was after that, I'm like, you know what? It's all part of it. No, but for all you guys who somewhat still doing this, it's in your sports, everything you're doing, it's still a business. The fact that you're taking off one hat, putting on another hat, find ways to somewhat stay relevant, introduce yourself, volunteer a little bit. Don't just take, give too, So if there's anything I can say, your network, don't be afraid to network, introduce yourself.
That was great. And Coster, Rob, in what ways is Primitive Group and in your own world giving back to the community, and how do you handle that?
Well, I think we just, like everything we do, we're intentional about what we do. And I think in our vision, mission, and core values, it talks about, any community that's going to give us the opportunity to serve, as being, either cannabis retailers or producers, we just feel like it's our duty to be able to give back in that. So we started Primitive Gives that does quarterly events. We do a big book bag drive out in Niles, which is pretty cool, seeing not only a lot of people from Niles, but a lot of people from South Bend come in, and the kids light up a little bit. We can, get kind of a, two birds with one stone, because we get to kind of touch the community and say hi to the community and be able to give back. And, just really trying to polish the cannabis industry in the way we want it to look. Right. And do those things that maybe certain cannabis companies wouldn't do or wouldn't think to do. Right. So, personally, me and Cal do a lot of speaking to, kids and stuff like that, camps and things like that. And then, like I said, Primitive Gives is that big thing where that's our philanthropic arm that we give through. And, it's going to get bigger as the company gets bigger.
Okay, well, that's all the time we had for today, but please join me in thanking both Coster and Rob for an excellent panel discussion.